What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Ones. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Ainsley Duncombe, CEO and founder of Off Market Listing. Ainsley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been a while. I've been watching the podcast.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to being invited on. So now I'm finally here. So brilliant.
Well, I mean, it's just been like a year now since I've been, podcasting kind of a thing. And I'm surprised you haven't been on yet, especially considering the crazy things you've been saying on Sylvia Aldavi's podcast. Shout out Golden Girl of Real Estate. But you posted, or rather Sylvia put up this video of you guys talking in the context of agentic AI and like how AI agents going to take a lot of real estate broker jobs and things like that. And it popped off, right? Like a lot of people agreeing with you, a lot of people disagreeing with you. How's the aftermath been?
So the aftermath has been, we've started the conversation. And
Yeah.
I think somebody needed to start the conversation. My background, being the International Business Director at Property Finder, and then prior to that, I was also with another tech company, Groupon. So I understand tech.
When he says he was with, he means CEO, by the way.
So I understand that. I understand a little bit of tech. I understand that typically these things, when they happen so quickly that normally people don't notice them. Blockbuster Video is a fantastic example. That happened almost overnight. They laughed them out the room when they offered them $50 million for it. 10 years later, they were filing for bankruptcy and Netflix turned into the big animal that we've seen today. So we've all seen it with Nokia. And what's happened with iPhone and Ericsson phones. If
BlackBerry.
You're old, BlackBerry is another great example. So at the time when the BlackBerry CEO was running and riding high, no one could tell him anything. He was the boss. He had a successful, mobile phone business, and they were doing significant revenues. For someone to say to him, "You're not going to be running the shop anymore in a few years from now," was unfathomable. And that's kind of what we're seeing with many of these brokers. Much of it, they don't want to admit it. What's going to happen? Some of it's fear, and I get it and understand that. But burying our head in the sand isn't going to change that. We do need to look at it full on, see what's happening. A good example of this, and I don't know how many people have Googled and looked and seen, there is a company in Portugal that was using an AI bot. It did over $100 million in sales completely on its own. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying these bots are going to come in and take everybody's job and that's going to change. But what I am going to say is the jobs that people are currently doing right now, that will be non-existent in the next 12 to 18 months, what you're currently doing.
So I'll elaborate on that particular bot that you're talking about because I looked into it as well. It's actually Christie's in Portugal.
That's right.
And basically went onto their website and it was like a video, lead qualifier. That's what it was. It would be like a video, like the video agent comes on and then all of a sudden you're qualifying with that particular person. Now, my personal take is that it coming onto your message piece is like still like, more acceptable sort of behavior versus like having something in front of you that's like AI generated, unless beforehand itself, you kind of say, this is an AI avatar or an AI assistant you need to manage people's expectations, right? I think you can't be telling people that it's human and then expecting them to be happy when they find out it's AI. So I think that's important for a lot of companies to start doing upfront. Like, hey, look, we live in the world of AI. Just say it's an AI assistant and no one will have an issue, right? People have been used to companies like Intercom, Sierra, like all of these that have been around for quite some time now. And they used to these chatbot experiences. They used to these AI avatars. It's just kind of, let's be forthcoming about it. And we get it. We're moving on with the world of AI. And this is a great example of something like this being implemented in the world of real estate. Now, look, before we jump into the whole conversation, I really want to, dive into your background, kind of like you touched upon as well. You're obviously CEO of a huge company called Groupon, and then you jumped into Property Finder, and I guess that was the entry into the sort of property world kind of a thing more broadly as well. What's the story behind 7-year-old Ainsley, and what did he want to be growing up at least?
I just wanted to make money, to be honest, when I was younger.
At 7 years old?
The first thing I remember, my auntie always tells me, is I resold her a newspaper. Oh, wow. So we had a Sunday newspaper come through and she said, "Oh, she wanted to go and get a paper." I said, "Oh, which paper?" It's the same one that I'd already got. I sold it to her for half the price, one that I'd have just got previously. So it has always been in the blood, wanting to sell things, wanting to be an entrepreneur, wanting to do business. Obviously, then I went on to washing cars and that kind of thing in the neighborhood. So it's always been those kind of things, and just having that entrepreneurial, it's natural spirit.
And you've seen sort of business done in both London, New York, and now Dubai as well, obviously for quite some time.
And Kenya.
Oh yes, there's a 3 year. I just checked your LinkedIn before this. So, what's sort of different about doing business in each market, and especially in the context of real estate?
So I wasn't doing real estate when I was in New York. It was advertising, sales,
media, tech, etc.
Right, yeah. So what I would say is, when you're doing business in New York, and we were selling across all of America.
Yeah.
But the majority of Americans, they only want to know three things. What have you got? How much does it cost? What does it do for me? Outside of that, they weren't really that interested in that much else. Fine. That was the American style of doing business. What is it? How much does it cost? That's all I really care about. What is it? What can it do for me? But then doing business in this region, Saudi Arabia especially, is much different. Over there, they want to, who are you? Who is your father? And where are you from? Completely different, because the way that they'll work it back, if I can know who you are, if I can know who your father is, I can know whether you're from a trustworthy family or not, and the area where you're from, I can work out who you are. And it doesn't matter what you're selling, because if you're from a good area, if there's any issues, I know where I can go back to. So, so it's very different.
And you're very bullish on Saudi as well. We'll get to that in a sec. So what's the journey to Dubai like? Because obviously Kenya and then straight to Dubai, right? After that.
Kenya was last. That was the pandemic. But I've lived in the UK. I've lived in the US, Spain, the Canary Islands. I was there for 9 years, and then Kenya as well. So I've lived in a few different countries.
What brought you to Dubai / Abu Dhabi in the early days as well?
Yeah, that's right. You've done some good research there, Joel. You've done your homework.
Don't worry about it.
You got this. So, I actually watched a documentary, Discovery Channel documentary, about Dubai being the Palm Jumeirah being built over 20 years ago. I watched it. I saw the vision. I saw what was going on. And I saw what Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum was up to. And I was like, whatever this guy is doing, I want to be a part of it. And I want to live in the country where someone has got such a great vision. Because if that works, it's going to be a game changer.
Now, let's just double click on that, right? Like, because a lot of people in the UK, when they say, oh, you said, I saw Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum's like vision, and I was like, okay, I want to ape in, I want to go and like see what's up. A lot of people in the UK and like abroad generally like don't have that immediate perception of the Middle East, right? Like that's not the first thing that they like, oh, this guy has a huge vision, let me just jump into the desert kind of a thing. That's not usually the first reaction. Well, what do you think is changing about that stigma, and how did it evolve over the years? Because you've seen it from when it was back then, and like you obviously broke it way back when. Yeah. So how do you how do you reconcile that back then, and like how do you think the perceptions changed to now?
I would say there's two things. I would say the first thing is Dubai, or the UAE as a whole, has been a pull type of economy in terms of the things that are going on here. Burj Khalifa, Burj Al Arab, Palm Jumeirah, these are all pull. These are all pull factors. So I was attracted by one of the pull factors. If anyone that's building an island in the middle of the ocean, is either nuts or a genius. And he's turned out to be the latter. So I saw that and I was attracted by that. But obviously there's other people, as you say, in the UK that see some of these pull factors. But in addition to that now, there's push factors in some of these other markets that are now making things tougher for people in these other markets, such as taxation, things like that are kind of like now pushing them to find an alternative, and they're looking globally, and this is definitely becoming one of the strongest options.
Got it. Now, Dubai property, like jumping into that, you've obviously had a very granular insight of this from your time at Property Finder. I guess what did you learn from your time there, and also B, what do you think the future of the classifieds business really is? I think that'd be interesting to know, especially given your take on AI and things like that.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Property Finder. Traveling around the world with Michael, the founder, was a unique experience. Some incredible learnings and experiences. Going to Egypt and speaking to little old men that were sat outside a building that had done the rentals for that building, the leasing for that building for the last 30 years. And their father had done it 30 years before them. Wow. And rocking up and saying, I've got a new way of doing this. And then them looking at my shiny shoes and my little suit, and like chuckling at me and saying, listen, son, you're not from around here. This idea, this concept that you've got is not going to wash and it's not going to work. And I'm like, no problem. Just show me the properties that you've got for rent and we'll go from there. So seeing that whole go full circle, and then now obviously seeing people using the tech, understanding the tech, it's an incredible experience. Like, it's the one I wouldn't change for the world, to be honest. So and obviously watching the company grow from where it was when I first started, then going on to it being valued at $500 million, and then furthermore going on since I've left and it becoming a unicorn and being valued at over $1 billion. It's truly incredible. So it's something that dreams are made of.
It's interesting. We need to click on the classifieds future, etc., that kind of piece. But before that, you talked about sort of traveling around with Michael, etc. What do you think makes a great technology sort of founder? Because obviously you've seen how, like you said, you go to a building that's been managed by someone for 30 years. You're like, oh, I've got something new. And like most people are like, don't even bother me. Right. So I guess what kind of traits do you need to, have in a technology founder in the property space to like really sort of break the barrier? And how did he do it as well?
Number one, visionary.
Yeah.
Both himself and obviously Sheikh Mohammed, and it's all about being a visionary, right? Yeah. It's all being able to see things that other people can't see. Much in the way, like right now, I'm banging the drum for AI and how things are going to change before people are fully aware of it and understanding it. They're like,
absolutely.
What are you talking about? Once again, like the guys in Egypt, I've been a broker here for 15 years. Nothing's changing in brokering here. I know how it works. All my clients are on my phone. Yeah. AI is not changing anything for me. It's the same again. I'm just seeing history almost repeat itself just with different tech. So visionary, also having confidence, having a lot of confidence in your product, in your vision, and having that confidence to want to change the world and change the way that things are done. Right. And being able to watch that up close and personal is a unique experience.
And in terms of where you think the classifieds business, portal business is sort of headed, like what's the future of it? How do you think it's going to evolve? Given the world of AI, that would be interesting to know.
Listen, I think there's a lot more smarter people that are out there that can kind of give an understand their own ideas in terms of where the classified business is going to go. One thing I can say confidently, it's not going to stay where it currently is.
Yeah.
I think we're now going to start seeing more smart systems, more AI tech being integrated into all of the businesses. What's quite funny is we're fortunate because we're at that crossroads because it's almost like dumb tech and smart tech. Even like the CRMs and the different.
Of course,
we're seeing that line in the sand. So the things that we've had previously, in comparison to the things that we're going to have moving forward, are going to be completely different. It's going to be a massive game changer.
So what do you think a broker's arsenal sort of looks like then, going forward, right? Like you said, dumb tech, smart tech, like, what should be in that arsenal if I'm a new broker in town or even an experienced one for that matter? It just needs an upgrade.
So I'm not saying that you're going to have more devices. In fact, I think what we've seen over time is the opposite was true, right? Yeah. Back in the day, you may well have, you may have had a file of fax back in the day. You may well have had your mobile phone if you're lucky enough to have that back in the day. You may well have had, a Rolodex of, depending on different things. But now you're having one device, such as the smartphone, and all of that's been able to encompass inside of that. So I still think that we'll have one piece of tech that we'll use. I'm not saying necessarily it's going to be in the same format as a phone, which we have right now, because there's a lots of talk about things like that changing glasses, and it all happens so quickly. So trying to predict the future in that regard is a challenging one, but I do know it's not going to stay the same as what it is right now. And when it's going to move quickly.
And what was the thing that you said on Sylvia's podcast that sparked such controversy?
The statement that I said, I initially said it first on Arabian Business, and then I repeated it on Sylvia's podcast.
Third time on the real one.
To save the best is 90% of brokers will not be working in the same job, same role as what they're currently working in right now, over the next 12 to 18 months. And the caveat that I would say, much in a similar way as we saw what Uber did to the taxi industry, that completely changed how that worked. So I'm not going to say there's not going to be any taxis anymore. There are still going to be brokers. But the way in which they did their business is going to change completely. And the taxis are the most straightforward idea. Back in the day, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, I used to phone up and, I need a taxi, house number 34, under the old oak tree, and a car would pull up. Those days are gone. People are not dialing for taxis typically that much anymore.
It's very interesting, right? Like if you think about it in 1995, let's say, right? 3 years before I was born. People, websites were the thing. Like the websites were the cool thing to sort of have. Fast forward to about 2010, you needed to have a social media profile as a business. Fast forward 5 years, and then you needed to sort of have a mobile app for your company, kind of a thing, so that you could, enhance like loyalty and all this kind of stuff. You know it better than I do. And now we're in this world where you need an AI agent for your company, right? Whether it is in the context of internal assistance, let's say brokers within your firm asking you questions that are commonly asked, being able to answer them in a super efficient sort of manner so that important people can focus on important things, and like these lightweight tasks can basically be delegated to usually someone, but in this case, an AI agent, to just enhance efficiency. I think people need to stop thinking like, if you think about how software engineers used computers before versus how they use them now, or even software engineers coding today versus coding 1 year ago even, right? It's so different, right? You have co-pilots for things and things like that. And I think the way to look at AI is, someone said this, in the conference that I was at earlier, where they said it's assistive intelligence versus, artificial intelligence that's trying to replace everyone. I think it's trying to make brokers smarter, if more efficient and faster. And like, that's where its value comes versus completely wiping them out. At least like in the intermediate, like that's definitely like where the world is sort of headed. And I think, just across functions, automating the boring stuff that nobody was doing anyways or nobody wanted to do, and then focusing that time that you have left over for human interaction, right? Like that's the trend across industries, not just real estate, so that humans will now have to sort of figure out what we do with this sort of like extra time that we have, whether it is like, cultivating your networking sort of skills where you're like playing more paddle because that's where all the people in real estate are today, or like, playing table tennis because networking is no longer suit and tie and like shake hands and say, here's my business card. Like that's not what's happening. It's actually, oh, you just beat me in a game of paddle and like, yeah, we should grab coffee sometime. I'm building this cool thing. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. Right. So I think that is really how AI is really now just, evolving things. So is that your view?
Let me say two comments to that.
Yeah.
I think, and what I don't want to be is the guy that just makes statements without making constructive suggestions as to how people can actually change. It's all very well, scaring everybody and like, your job's going to change, completely next 12 to 18 months. Yeah. But how is that constructive? How is it going to change? And what can they do? So number one, working on a personal brand is so important for brokers that are working right now. Having a personal brand is number one, because, and I was speaking with my team the other day and I said to them, at the moment we've got different people in our offices that are fantastic in different areas. You've got one person that specialises in Russell Kmart, another person that works downtown. I said, that's great. So if a client walked in right now and said, I wanted to know something about, Russell Kmart, who would I go to? That's for Maxi. I say, fantastic. That's a no-brainer. We all understand how that works. Yep. I said, okay, but let's imagine for a second we all had exactly the same amount of knowledge. Because AI now means I can have exactly the same amount of knowledge on any area, because obviously I'm able to tap in and find out all the information. So I said, so if all of us have exactly the same knowledge, then what is the differentiator for the client to decide who they want to work with? Personal brand now comes into it. Who do I have the better rapport with? And depending where the client's from, they may well resonate well with Maxi, they may well resonate well with one of the other guys in the team. So that the personal brand is going to be what's so important, integral to being successful. In addition to that, one of the things that one of the guys in the team said is, but I'm going to, I've got all the knowledge. I understand more about these areas than anybody else. I'm like, the clients that we're going to have tomorrow are going to be significantly different to the clients that we had previously. We all remember back in the day, you go to the doctor, I've got a headache, my arm's hurting, whatever. What is it, doc? And the doctor would tell you, well, it could be a migraine, it could be this. That doesn't happen anymore. No. Because almost everybody is Googling or ChatGPTing their symptoms before they go to the doctor. So when they're going there, they're like, doctor, I've either got arthritis or I've got, a migraine, and I believe I probably need XYZ for it. That's what's happening. And the same is going to happen in real estate. So the clients are going to be that much more educated. So even those people that do know something, that's going to dissipate, because the clients are also going to know the same, if not more, than you.
So what does your personal brand include? I guess that's the interesting thing to sort of tell people, because like, yes, we all need personal brand. Absolutely. Right. Like, but if every agent's doing the same formula, it's probably not going to help you stand out quite a lot.
We're all so completely different. We've all got so many different benefits.
Yeah.
Myself, my experience is very different to somebody that's been here in the UAE for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Someone may say, I'd like to go to somebody that's been here for a longer period of time, you know?
Right.
They may also say, I might want to work with somebody that's fresh and new and, you know, has got a different kind of outlook on it, you know?
Right.
So all of these types of things play a big difference and play a big role in the personal brand. Where you're from plays a different role. You know, some people may have synergies with the countries that you're from back home, your experiences, things that you've been through.
Yeah.
So all of these things play a really important part. But it's just selling yourself and selling, you know, your experience and what you know and what value you can be, your integrity, how trustworthy you are. All these are the kind of things that you can definitely hone in and push them to the next level.
Yeah, I think like what I've seen is just a lot of people that need more main character energy. You know what I'm saying? I think that's just where it's at, because you have to believe that the story is about you, right? You have to believe that people actually care about what you're talking about, right? Whether it's technology, whether it's property, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, right? And that they want to see the different dimensions of this character in this movie that's playing out pretty much. And I think if you start viewing it like that, you're more comfortable sharing almost all of it, rather than seeing yourself as like one tiny bit in this large like void kind of, then just shouting into it, versus believing that I am the center of this ecosystem. Here's how, you know.
That's one way of looking at it. But even not being the center of the ecosystem, even if you can own your tiny part of that ecosystem, and you can say to yourself, the clients that come to me, I am going to look after them to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat them like my parents, and I'm going to give them the best value in whatever they're looking for.
It's interesting you said that. So you're talking about going deep into a niche, and in your case, off market seems to be that niche. So tell me about where that name came from, and like, you know, sort of what the story is behind all of that.
So the actual story is I was at a friend's house. It was in Arabian Ranches.
Yeah. Off market.
Yeah, he'd recently renovated his property. It looked absolutely beautiful, and he was really, really upset. And we came round there and we were cutting lemons in the kitchen. And I was like, you know, why are you so upset? What's going on? He goes, I wanted to sell the property, his house, a beautiful villa. He goes, I put it on the market, and then the first people that came round was his next door neighbours. It was the wife of the next door neighbour and her girlfriend. And they came round. They had their mobile phones in their hands, recording. And all they did is walk all around his house and record every single part of his house, whilst looking to look round. Oh. And then they finished. They recorded everywhere. Loved the pool. Everything that he'd done that has been unique. Said thanks ever so much. They went back next door, and clearly she went and showed it to her husband and said, you know, this is what I want us to do with our house that's literally directly next door. Oh, he was distraught. He was genuinely distraught. He took his house immediately off of the market, and he said he never wants to go through that again. And he actually felt violated. So I'm there thinking to myself, wow, that was powerful. That was strong. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way in which you can sell a property and limit yourself being open to that kind of exposure. Because when you put it out onto the open market, anybody that phones up is able to come and have a look around, you know, so it's very difficult to limit it. So that's where off market was born, to be able to offer people that want to buy a property discreetly, they're able to do it. They want to sell a property discreetly and choose who comes and that kind of thing, they're able to do it. But what's quite interesting is in this new world of AI, all of the listings that are publicly available are typically the ones that are on market. So it means the listings that I have that are off market are not as susceptible to being, you know, able to be found by AI as well. So that's quite interesting.
Very interesting. So like basically then that's where your personal brand comes in, and like, you know, people sort of reach out to you to ask you, hey, do you have something that's not publicly available kind of a
that's
thing?
That's exactly what I'm getting right now. I get people call me up, say, listen, Ainsley, I've looked the market. Haven't been able to find XYZ. Do you have it off market? And I'll look through, and the team will look through. Yeah, we've got it.
Very
and we're able to do those kind of sales that from people that have the properties, but they don't want to list them publicly from a multitude of different reasons.
I've seen this happen a lot in London, but not as much in Dubai. So like, it's nice to see that culture, it's a sign of a market sort of maturing, right? Like that's when you have these off-market sort of transactions and things like that. Looking into sort of Dubai real estate, UAE real estate, I know there's a lot of heat right now in Abu Dhabi, where everyone's talking about this whole Disney World, Disneyland sort of thing that's happening. I mean, I used to always regret that I couldn't go to like Japan or Paris or whatever it is to like see any of this stuff. But now it's coming 45 minutes drive from me. So like, do you think that's going to change anything significantly, or is like one of several pieces that are changing the entire landscape anyways?
I think it's one of several pieces that are changing the entire landscape, but it's a significant one. And it's one that I've been waiting for a while, because it's almost a no-brainer. I used to think to myself, why are they not here? Because there's so much here, there's so much to offer. We had SeaWorld here and had all the different, the water parks. Why are they not here? So I always used to wonder to myself, what's happening. But that is almost like one of the final pieces for the jigsaw puzzle. And to have Walt Disney World now, announce that they're going to be coming to Abu Dhabi on Yas Island, it's a game changer. Because it means if you're a tourist and you can be sat wherever in the world you are, Singapore, Malaysia, wherever, and you're thinking about your next vacation, your next holiday destination, there are very few countries in the world that can give the UAE a run for its money now.
Yeah.
Because primarily, Orlando in Florida used to be the go-to place if you wanted to go to Disney World and get some beach and all that kind of thing. Now that we've got that here in the UAE, this is making this very, very, very attractive.
Yeah.
That combined with the other things that we're all very familiar with, which is the safety aspect and, the fantastic roads and living standards that we have here. Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more people and corporations and companies, even more than we had before. When I was running Groupon, I remember that was one of the early US companies to actually be here and have boots on the ground here, and we had our office in Media City.
Yeah.
But now I think we're going to start seeing, more and more of these big international global companies put roots down and have HQs here in the Emirates.
Exactly, right? Like, I mean, if you got SeaWorld, plus you got the Louvre, as well as now this Disney World thing. And then if you look at Ras Al Khaimah, you got like the wind stuff coming down there. And obviously in Dubai, you already have the Burj Khalifa. So it's like every emirate is sort of getting their own sort of crown jewels. And that's really making it a hard proposition to like go somewhere else. Yeah.
The entire region is rising, as a matter of fact. We all remember Qatar, they did a fantastically successful World Cup.
Yeah.
Oman is also doing some really, really interesting things down there as well. Oman are bringing the ocean into the land.
Got it.
And they're having a Riviera down there, which is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, there's a lot going on there.
Let's talk about that. Tell me what your big take is on Saudi Arabia.
I use this analogy. Some people will like it, some people won't, but this is the analogy that I use. I think it's almost like America and Jamaica. My parents from Jamaica, so that's where that comes from. So UAE is obviously like a Jamaica, and Saudi Arabia is like an America. So I think they can have a symbiotic relationship where the two countries can work very, very well together. And I don't think it's a case of this or that. Many people are like, oh, well, Dubai does this, so Saudi can't do that. And no. The two can coexist very, very well, but they're very, very different. One is a speedboat that can move very, very quickly, and the other is a cruise liner that can carry significantly more people and packs a significant larger punch, but it does take a while in order for it to move. It does take a while in order for it to get the momentum. But once it does, when
do you think that's going to happen?
It's a very big machine. They're starting to these things initially start off very slowly, but I think you understand, but once it does get momentum, starts getting bigger and faster. It will take time, but it'll get faster and it'll get quicker. And I think even, as we record this right now, the US president is currently in the Emirates anyway right now, and kind of doing a tour of the region as well. So these are all examples of the soft power that the region is starting to have on a global scale, because the president of the US can decide which countries to go to, and naturally they're very strategic with where they're going and the time that they spend. But if they're finding it important enough to spend time in countries that are similar kind of size as the UAE, it speaks volumes.
I believe Qatar just gave them a plane or something like that. I can come to Doha too, by the way, if anyone's watching. But very interesting to sort of talk through the property sort of landscape and things like that. But I want to know more about the person behind the brand. You know what I'm saying? What I try to understand is what was sort of like the hardest things that you've had to do, and how has it made it the person that you are today?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, yeah, there's challenges for all of us every day. None of it's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the past few weeks, I've had to fire a client before, which is kind of the opposite. Most people think the clients are the ones that pick the brokers. But if I'm working with somebody and I can see that I don't like their morals or how they're doing things, then I'll tell them I'm not going to work with you anymore, that I'm not comfortable with what you're doing and how you're doing it, and I'm not going to work with you. So that's happened. I've experienced racism as well, which has also been, a challenge, and is something that not just here in the UAE, but people experience this all over the world, right? But you've got to just keep on moving, keep getting through it, and keep pushing forward, and most importantly, keep a smile on your face. So that's There's been quite a few instances of different things that have made it tough. But I think what's important is when you can take those experiences, and there's a saying: 2 men looked from prison bars. One saw mud, the other stars. Now, they're looking from the same window, but they've both got different perspectives on it. So I think it's important to kind of, look at the positive and pick that up and run with that.
I think they call that glass half full.
There's that as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I guess looking back on a younger Ainsley, or like a 21-year-old Ainsley, what would your advice to them be today?
Would definitely be to learn from others that have gone before you. I think that's really, really important, because much of the time, and I've done this myself, I'm guilty of this myself, of trying to work everything out yourself and trying to put everything together, when, there are people now that have been through that experience and they've done that. And if you can, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and use them, in that order, to listen as much as you speak. That's not to say you shouldn't ask questions, but you should listen to learn in order to make life that much easier, and you can grow that much faster. So, I think that would be important.
I think that's very valuable advice.
Yeah.
I realized I missed this part, actually. So just wanted to come back to it. When you see brokerage owners today, and you meet a lot of them, where do you think they're sort of being complacent in their existing sort of technology stack? And what do you think they're not understanding? And what do you think they should be implementing to give their brokers the best shot?
I think they're underestimating how much time that they've got. Being comfortable is one of the nicest feelings that there is.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. It feels great. They've got a successful brokerage. Everything's going well. Revenue's coming through the door. The market right now is very, very good as well. A high tide raises all ships.
Yep.
So, no matter where you are, that tide raises everybody. Many of them don't quite understand quite how quickly, quite how fast, and quite how aggressive the change is going to be. And one of the other things, just touching back on something else that we spoke about before, you talk about Sylvia's podcast, everybody's arguing with me about this 12 to 18 months and, brokers changing and the business changing in terms of the jobs that they have and all that kind of thing. I'm like, guys, if you're arguing about 12 to 18 months, you've missed the point. The change has started today. It's already started. And either you're doing what you've always done, or you're starting to introduce new tech to change the ways in which your brokers are working. Yeah. So the first step, anybody that's watching this podcast right now is probably on the right side of where they need to be, because they're using those 2 ears to listen and to learn and to understand more about it. That's the first step. But then once you've understood the problem, then pretty quickly you need to start coming up with remedies to remedy it, because it's going to be a race. It's going to be a race to the finish.
100%. And, I think a lot of people in real estate think that it's just ChatGPT for real estate. That's what it is, right? You just use ChatGPT. That's what, being an AI sort of founder, sort of going into these rooms. Yeah. This is sort of the interesting things that I hear. And I don't think they understand what AI agents actually mean. It's sort of designating different roles in your company to a piece of technology and telling it to take out autonomous actions on behalf of that particular person. Right. So I actually wrote this down because my CTO would kill me if I messed it up. Okay. So what does an AI agent actually include? And you'll know this already, but this is just for our listeners, right? So you've got the UI and the front end, which makes it easy, which is a simple chat interface, very similar to sort of ChatGPT. Then you've got memory. So the idea that you could sort of put in a certain piece of information, and let's say 30 conversations later, it still remembers that piece of, which is called context handling and things like that. Yeah. Then you've got your auth identity and security permissions. You've got your tools that it plugs into externally. So your AI agent needs to be able to communicate with tools like Google, set a book in your calendar appointment, like your Google Calendar, your Microsoft, be able to do that. Then it needs to sort of be able to monitor its own performance, kind of its own performance review, and be able to say where it's lacked and where it can improve, so it can constantly improve. And then it needs to be able to sort of coordinate multiple people on its team, so a multiple AI agent sort of network kind of a thing, and tell it what to do, designate different roles to each person, etc., as well as sort of asking the right LLMs for the right questions, right? So asking OpenAI for, let's say, information about a certain topic, and then asking Gemini or Anthropic for another piece of information because it's better at that task, right? Yeah. So engineers use Anthropic a little bit more, let's say, or Grok a little bit more because it's better at coding versus OpenAI, which is more used for, let's say, research along with Perplexity or something like that. So these are all tool names. If you're hearing this and you're like, what the hell is he saying? That's absolutely fine. My point that I'm trying to drive home is that it's actually not as simple as just saying it's ChatGPT for real estate. There's so many moving parts, and what your job is to really is like find people that get it and want to make it work for your business. Yeah. And I think it's interesting to find like locally in your, like, you know, who can come to your office and basically sit down with you and talk you through these things. I think it's important to find people like yourself, to be honest, to be like, hey, here are the different workflows that you need to look at, like from a broader picture, and say, this is what I need to change so that I can make my agents 10 times more efficient. Yeah. And I think if they're looking at this conversation as what you said, where they're scared of like 12 to 18 months, it's like saying like, oh, you got bruised, don't worry about it until your leg falls off. Like, well, that's not it at all, right? So
I think there's another element to that. And I think the sheer fact that it's able to get smarter over time is also something that AI is able to get smart, is also something that I'm not sure that everyone's taking into consideration right now as well. So the fact that how it is today and how it is in 6 months' time, it's already got that ability to be able to learn and educate and get better. And you also mentioned that some people are not getting it or not on it. I totally understand it. No one's ever seen anything quite like this before in our lifetime. This is such a game changer. It's almost being able to have 50 additional members of staff that you don't need to have visas for, you know, that are able to work on your behalf. Yeah. And the difference is they also don't need to sleep for 6 to 8 hours every night. No. They also never forget anything that you ever tell them. And they can also, you know, speak in multiple languages if you require them to. I mean, this is some strong stuff.
Crazy, right?
It's mind blowing.
And to your point about it was not as smart, let's say 9 years ago. The team at Google, like the computer vision team at Google, used to actually look at pictures of chihuahuas and pictures of a blueberry muffin. Yeah. And we're like, what's the difference between which one is a chihuahua and which one is a blueberry? That's what it used to do, right? And today it's a PhD level assistant for every profession in every line of work, and it's able to sort of equalize knowledge. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. That's really powerful stuff. Well, Ainsley, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's been really good.
Awesome. Guys, tune in next week for another episode of The Real Ones. We'll have yet another exciting guest. And if you have any questions after this episode, feel free to leave them in the comments. And I'll make sure to send them over to Ainsley so that none of you freak out. AI is coming, but it's here to help. And hopefully see you next week.